Jack Torrance drives 3.5 hours through Colorado to reach the Overlook Hotel, where he meets the manager, Stuart Ullman. The hotel shuts down every winter. Snow blocks the roads and makes travel impossible, so they need someone to look after the place during those months. Stuart warns that the isolation can really mess with a person's head. He feels obligated to mention that back in 1970, the last caretaker, Charles Grady, had a mental breakdown and murdered his family with an axe before shooting himself. The police chalked it up to cabin fever, that thing that happens when people are cooped up too long without leaving home. But Jack isn't bothered. He used to teach. Now he writes. And the idea of 5 months of peace and quiet to work sounds perfect to him. Meanwhile, back home, his wife Wendy and their son Danny are talking about what it'll be like spending months in a hotel. Danny doesn't see much difference. He doesn't have anyone to play with at home either. Wendy asks if Tony, Danny's imaginary friend, wants to go to the hotel. Danny does this funny voice thing, wiggling his finger to act out Tony's part, saying he doesn't want to go. Later, in the bathroom, Danny talks to Tony while staring at his reflection. He asks if his dad took the job, and Tony tells him Jack already accepted it. Tony says Jack will call soon to tell Wendy the news. Right then, the phone rings. It's Jack, telling Wendy he took the job. Danny asks Tony why he doesn't want them to go to the hotel. His eyes go wide, and he slips into this trance where he sees blood gushing from an elevator and twin girls in blue dresses, all while he's screaming. Then Danny passes out. When he comes to, there's a doctor examining him with Wendy standing nearby. The doctor asks about flashing lights or strange sounds, but Danny says no. He only remembers talking to Tony. When asked who Tony is, Danny explains that he's the little boy who lives inside his mouth. The doctor wants to know if Tony ever makes Danny do things, but Danny won't talk about it anymore. The doctor tells Wendy privately that Danny's physically fine and the seizure looks like self-hypnosis. She asks when Tony first showed up, and Wendy explains it started when Danny began nursery school and had trouble adjusting. She also admits that Jack came home drunk once and dislocated Danny's shoulder in a rage. After that, Jack quit drinking completely and told Wendy if he ever touched alcohol again, she could leave him. During the final week of fall, the family arrives at the hotel as the last guests and staff are clearing out. Stuart gives Wendy and Jack a tour while Danny plays darts in the game room. Out of nowhere, those twins from his vision appear behind him, stare at him for a moment, then disappear. Stuart shows the couple their apartment, then takes them outside to see the hedge maze, which takes at least an hour to solve. He mentions the hotel was built on a Native American burial ground and got attacked by local tribesmen during construction. In the garage, they find the Snowcat, a vehicle that can handle deep snow in emergencies. In the gold room, they admire the gorgeous ballroom. Stuart explains they remove all the alcohol from the bar during winter closure for insurance reasons. Just then, the secretary brings Danny in. Stuart asks the chef, Dick Halloran, to show Wendy and Danny the kitchen while he finishes the tour with Jack. Dick shows Wendy their massive food supply for winter and keeps calling Danny Doc. Wendy's surprised he knows the nickname. Dick pretends he must have heard her use it, but Wendy doesn't remember saying it since they arrived. Dick continues the tour. While the adults talk, Danny can't stop staring at Dick. Suddenly, he hears Dick's voice in his head asking if he wants ice cream. Later, Wendy goes back to Jack to finish the tour, leaving Danny with Dick, who wants to chat. He tells Danny that he and his grandmother used to have conversations inside their heads thanks to something he calls the Shining. Dick never thought he'd meet another person with this ability. He asks Danny about his experiences, but Danny says Tony told him not to talk about it. When Dick asks about Tony, he manages to get Danny talking about his shining indirectly. Danny sees things when he goes into these trances, though he doesn't always remember them. Dick explains that something's shining in this hotel, and certain things happen that only people with the shining can see. Some of these things came from tragedies and years of the hotel's history, so they're not all good. Dick tells him to think of them like pictures in a book. Danny asks about room 237, but Dick insists there's nothing in it and tells Danny to stay away. After a month, the family settles into a comfortable routine. Wendy admits she was scared of living alone in such a huge place at first, but Jack says he loved the hotel from the start. He felt this strong sense that he'd been there before. Still, he can't seem to write. After breakfast, Wendy and Danny explore the maze. Jack's supposed to be writing, but ends up playing with a ball instead. He finds a miniature model of the maze and stares at it, watching tiny figures of his family reach the center. It's hard to tell if it's real or in his imagination. On Tuesday, the news warns of a blizzard heading their way. Danny rides his tricycle through the hotel corridors and stops at room 237. He tries the doorknob, but it's locked. The twins flash through his mind before he moves on. Meanwhile, Jack's finally writing. When Wendy checks on him, he's incredibly rude to her. He eventually explodes, yelling at her for interrupting. Jack makes a new rule. When he's writing, she can't come in. He kicks her out with some nasty language. Wendy leaves quietly. On Thursday, Wendy and Danny play in the snow while watches from inside with this crazy look on his face. By Saturday, Wendy tries using the phone but discovers the lines are down. She tries the radio in Stuart's office and reaches a park ranger. He says it's completely normal for phone lines to go out all winter. He also mentions the region's getting the worst blizzards in years and tells her to keep the radio on at all times. Danny's still riding his tricycle through the halls when he finds his path blocked by the twins. They know his name and ask him to play with them forever and ever and ever. This triggers a vision of them lying in pools of blood next to an axe. Terrified, Danny covers his eyes and waits before checking that the hallway's clear. He tells Tony he's really scared. Tony reminds him of Dick's advice. These images aren't real, just pictures in a book. On Monday, Danny asks Wendy if he can get a toy from his room, but she says no because Jack's sleeping there. Danny promises to be quiet, and she agrees. But when Danny walks in, Jack's awake, staring out the window like he's in a trance. He calls Danny over to sit with him. Danny asks if he's sick. Jack says he's just tired and wishes they could stay at the hotel forever and ever and ever. The words immediately remind Danny of the twins, and he wonders if his father might hurt the family. This sets Jack off. He thinks Wendy's been filling Danny's head with ideas, and he swears he'll never hurt him. On Wednesday, Danny's playing with his toys in a hallway when a ball suddenly rolls through his cars. He looks around but sees no one. Walking down the hall, he discovers room 237 is open and looks inside. At that moment, Wendy's checking the boilers when she hears Jack screaming. She finds him asleep at his desk, having a nightmare. She wakes him immediately, and Jack falls off his chair in a panic. He describes this awful dream where he killed her and Danny and cut them into pieces. Jack admits he might be losing his mind. When Danny comes in sucking his thumb, Wendy tells him to leave, but he doesn't listen. She goes to him and sees terrible bruises on his neck. Wendy assumes Jack did it and screams at him before taking Danny and leaving. Jack stares in shock that quickly turns to anger. Jack wanders the halls muttering in frustration. When he enters the gold room, he flips on the light and sits at the bar, saying he'd sell his soul for a drink. Suddenly, this bartender named Lloyd appears with bottles of liquor. Jack knows his name and seems happy to see him, like it's completely normal. He orders whiskey. The drink makes him feel like a new person, and he starts complaining about his family, insulting them while he's worked up. Jack admits he did hurt Danny 3 years ago, but it was an accident and they were supposed to have moved past it. Just then, Wendy bursts in and Lloyd and the drinks vanish. She tells Jack there's a crazy woman in room 237 who tried to strangle Danny. At the same time, Dick's at home watching TV when a vision suddenly hits him. Danny sees the same vision in his room. Jack rushes into room 237 and sees a beautiful naked woman in the bathtub. She comes out to greet him. But when he opens his eyes, he realizes he was kissing an old woman with a rotting body. The woman starts walking toward him, laughing like she's insane, but Jack gets out and locks the door before running away. Danny saw all of this in his mind while drooling in his trance. When the vision ends, Dick tries calling the hotel, but the phones are still down. He calls the park ranger and asks him to check on the family. Then Jack tells Wendy he found nothing. When she wonders about the bruises, Jack comes up with this theory that Danny did it to himself, connecting it to the seizure from before they arrived. Wendy says they need to leave the hotel to get Danny to a doctor, which makes Jack lose it. He wants to stay and write, and he accuses Wendy of trying to ruin his life before storming off. Meanwhile, Danny's terrified when he sees the word "Red Rum" appear on his bedroom door, along with the vision of the bloody elevator. In the kitchen, Jack's throwing things around in rage. When he reaches the lobby, He's shocked to find balloons and party decorations everywhere. He starts hearing music and follows it to the gold room. There's this massive party going on with people in formal clothes from decades ago. Jack sits at the bar and orders a drink, but Lloyd won't take his money, saying these are orders from the house. Jack's confused about who's paying, but Lloyd says that's not his concern right now. Jack stands and accidentally bumps into a waiter, spilling wine on his jacket. The waiter takes Jack to the bathroom to help clean up and introduces himself as Delbert Grady. Jack remembers Stuart's story about the caretaker who killed his family and asks if he was the hotel caretaker. Grady says it wasn't him, and he doesn't know what Jack's talking about. He even claims his wife and daughters are in the hotel right now. He insists that Jack has always been the caretaker, saying he's sure because you've always been here. They stare at each other before Grady tells Jack that Danny's trying to bring an outsider into things. He uses a racial slur to clarify he means Dick Halloran. Grady believes Danny has real talent and will use it against Jack, calling him a mischievous boy. Jack blames Wendy for Danny's behavior, so Grady hints they need to be corrected. Grady explains his daughters didn't like the hotel when they first moved there. One even tried to burn it down, but he corrected them. When his wife tried to intervene, he corrected her too. At this point, Wendy's having a breakdown, chain smoking, while wondering if she and Danny can take the snowcat to find the Rangers. Suddenly, she hears Danny shouting and runs to his room to find him repeating, "Red rum." She tries calming him down, but Danny uses Tony's voice to say, "Danny's not here, Mrs. Torrance." Wendy thinks he's dreaming and tries to wake him, but he says he can't and insists Danny's gone. A distraught Wendy hugs him, crying. Minutes later, Jack's wandering the halls and hears something on the radio. He goes into Stuart's office, removes the radio cover, pulls out some parts, and disables it. When Dick talks to the park ranger again, he learns no one's been able to reach the family. The next morning, Dick catches the first plane to Colorado and gets to Denver Airport. He calls a mechanic friend to borrow a snowcat, then rents a car. On his way to his friend's place, he sees several cars that have crashed in the bad weather. At the hotel, Wendy keeps trying to talk to Danny, but he responds in Tony's voice. Holding a baseball bat, she looks for Jack, but doesn't find him at his desk. She reads what's in the typewriter and sees nothing but "all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy," written over and over. When she checks the stack of paper next to the typewriter, every page has the same phrase. Suddenly, Jack appears behind her asking if she likes it. After Wendy screams in shock, Jack asks what she's doing there. But Wendy's so terrified she can barely speak. Meanwhile, Danny gets another vision of the bloody elevator and red rum on the door. Jack starts following Wendy through the room, acting crazy while asking what they should do about Danny. When Wendy says they need to take Danny to a doctor, Jack starts yelling at her, accusing her of wanting to ruin this job. A terrified Wendy backs up the stairs, waving the bat and telling him to stay away. With this insane look on his face, Jack keeps coming, saying he doesn't want to hurt her. He just wants to bash her brains in. Finally, Wendy hits him with the bat and he tumbles down the stairs. She drags the unconscious Jack through the hotel kitchen. She wants to lock him in the storage room, but can't find the key. Jack starts waking up. So she tries again and finally gets the door open to drag him inside. Just as he begins fighting back, she runs out and locks it, trapping him inside. Jack pounds on the door screaming while Wendy grabs a knife to defend herself. When he hears her crying, Jack speaks sweetly, saying he hurt his head badly and needs a doctor. Wendy says she'll take Danny in the snowcat and bring back a doctor. Jack drops the act and laughs like a maniac, saying she's not going anywhere. Wendy runs to check the snowcat and finds the engine's been destroyed. After a few hours, Jack wakes up in the storage room to someone knocking. It's Grady, who says Jack might not be right for the job. Eventually, Jack begs for another chance, and Grady says the only solution is handling things in the harshest way possible. When Jack promises he'll do exactly that, the door opens. At the same time in the mountains, Dick's driving the snowcat as fast as he can through the dark. While Wendy sleeps, Danny keeps repeating "red rum" in Tony's voice. He takes the knife from Wendy's bedside table and red lipstick, using it to write "murder" backwards as "red rum" on the bathroom door, just like his vision. This makes him repeat the word louder, waking Wendy. She takes the knife and hugs him. Looking in the mirror, she realizes "red rum" backwards spells "murder." Suddenly, Jack starts hitting the main apartment door with an axe. Wendy drags Danny to the bathroom and locks the door. She opens the window and pushes Danny out. Thanks to the snow pile, he slides down easily. She tries to follow, but the window's too small. She tells Danny to run and hide. Jack makes a hole in the main door and reaches through to unlock it. Then he starts breaking down the bathroom door while quoting the big bad wolf from the Three Little Pigs. Wendy screams as Jack makes another hole and looks through, saying, "Here's Johnny," like the famous TV show. When he puts his arm through, Wendy slashes his hand with the knife. While Danny hides in a kitchen cabinet, Dick arrives at the hotel. The couple hears his snowcat. Jack runs to the lobby, and the moment Dick enters, he attacks with the axe. Danny screams as he gets a vision of what's happening. After Dick falls dead, Jack goes looking for his son and sees him running from the kitchen, starting a chase. Meanwhile, Wendy leaves the bathroom looking for Danny too. Walking down a hallway, she sees two people in a room wearing bizarre costumes. Terrified, she runs and reaches the lounge to find Dick's body. Then a man with a head wound appears behind her saying, "Great party, isn't it?" Wendy runs again, and in the next room she finds cobwebs everywhere and skeletons on chairs. Wendy runs to escape again and reaches the elevator, but she sees the wave of blood pouring out. Jack finds the front door open, so he turns on the outside floodlights and sees Danny entering the maze. Jack follows immediately, watching the boy's footprints in the snow. After running a while, Danny notices his own tracks and decides to walk backwards over them to confuse his father. While the boy hides, Jack yells in anger when he discovers the footprints suddenly stop. He keeps spinning around and quickly gets lost. Danny manages to exit the maze without being spotted. Wendy runs to meet him, and together they get in Dick's snowcat and finally escape. In the maze, Jack reaches the center and collapses, muttering incomprehensibly. The next morning, Jack's dead and frozen. In the hotel, music plays in the ballroom, and we see a photograph from 1921 showing Jack's face among the guests. That's the end of the movie. Thank you for watching.